So the last thing I want to show you how to do with collections is something that is really useful in order to be able to use collections together. And it is to combine collections with a map. And you can combine collections with other types, but typically a map is going to be the most useful, and it really solves a lot of problems that are pretty difficult to solve in other ways. So what we are going to do here is we are going to create an example here of creating test scores. So I'm going to create a map here, and I'm going to make it a map of string. And we are going to have this map a student name, which will be a string to a list of their test scores. So we are going to use another collection here, and it's going to be a list of integer. So this syntax is a little bit strange here, but if you remember, a map has a key and a value. And in this case, the key is a string, which will represent the name of the student, and the value is actually another collection, which is a list of test scores or a list of integers. So we can call this test scores, and we will create a new hash map, and the same thing here. We will do a string, and we will do a list of integer. So now we have our map of test scores, and we need to populate this data. So the way we do this is we can just do test scores dot put. Remember, you put things into a map, and we will put a name. We will put Jimmy. Now we need a list of test scores here. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to just create a new list. And I'm just going to create a list of type integer. And we will call this Jimmy scores equals new array list of type integer. And then I'm going to add some scores. We are going to say Jimmy scores dot add. We'll put in 18, and then we will put in a few more scores here. We'll put 60, and we'll put 97. And then we are just going to put Jimmy scores into here. And so you can see here that we have created our array list, we have added a bunch of items to it, and then we have inserted it into the map. So now we have a map that is mapping a student or a string to a list of integers. So I went ahead and added some more scores here. I added a John scores and Jack scores, and we have added them to our test scores under Jimmy, John, and Jack. So now we have basically a map that has got 3 keys or 3 entries in here, but each one have an array list of their test scores. So let's create a method to be able to print out the test scores of a student. So to save us a little bit of time here, I went ahead and created this print scores method, and all this print scores method is going to do is it takes in a string for the student name and then our map of our test scores. So we have called it scores map here, and it's the same thing. It's just a map of type string of the list integers. And so then what it's going to do is it's going to get the correct list of integers based on the student name out of our map, and it's going to store it in this variable called scores. And this is a list of integer. And remember that our map contains lists of integers, and the keys are the student name. So it's just going to use that to pull out the correct list from our map, and then we are just going to loop through each score in the scores. So we are using our iterator here to iterate through this list, and then we are just going to print out each score. And I will uncomment out this line here. We are printing the scores for Jack, and we are passing in our test scores. So if I run this now, you can see it is printed out 50 and 60. So if I change this to John, you can see that it is printed out 82, 98, 90, and 99. And if I change this to Jimmy now, you can see it is printed out his test scores, which are 80, 16, and 97. Basically, the idea here is that you can create a map of another collection, and you can really do this to create some very complex types. As you can see here, it would be kind of difficult without this kind of a data structure to model the scores for an individual student. We would have to come up with some clever way of using different collections and knowing which number represented which one in a different collection in order to store all these scores. Or we would have to create our own custom classes that had a list of the scores for each student. But this is a really easy way to be able to do that, and then you are able to really create a more complicated data structure from these simpler ones.